Today on the CTV News at 5, the man many tout to be the next leader of the federal Liberals comes to Lethbridge. Plus, a bittersweet victory for a former government worker the Human Rights Commission has agreed was fired because of her age. And East Kootenay Fire Departments have a new tool that can save the lives of your four-legged family members.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Afternoon. Liberal leadership candidate Justin Trudeau says it's time to put an end to any East versus West mentality in politics.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be back here in Lethbridge.
Trudeau spoke to a sold-out crowd of Liberal supporters this morning at a breakfast at Country Kitchen Catering. Trudeau says he's aware that his famous last name may create an uphill battle for him in the West, where his father Pierre wasn't so popular during his tenure as Prime Minister. Trudeau spoke on a number of issues, including the Keystone Pipeline project and his belief that stronger connections are needed with all Canadians and their government.
We now have exactly that kind of government put forward by people who are at the origins of the reform movement. So I know Albertans and people across the country feel they deserve better and to not be taken for granted by their representatives as they are right now.
Trudeau also made a campaign stop in Medicine Hat over the lunch hour and will be in Calgary tonight. Now, it was back to work today for members of Parliament after a 6-week break. Debate over pension and immigration reforms is expected to carry over from last year, but the economy and Aboriginal affairs are going to top the agenda. The Idle No More movement continued its protest on Parliament Hill today as part of a National Day of Action. Now, on his first day back on the job, Lethbridge MP Jim Hillier is opposing planned changes to federal riding boundaries. Hillier says he has filed a protest after hearing opposition and concerns from many residents. The proposed changes would see some communities south of Lethbridge move into the Medicine Hat riding. Brooks would be moved out of Medicine Hat, but that doesn't sit well with Medicine Hat MP LeVar Payne or people in the Brooks area, or with residents of the counties of Cardston and Warner. Hillier says one idea being tossed around would see Brooks stay in the Medicine Hat riding and the counties south of Lethbridge move into a new riding that would extend north to Strathmore.
When I've talked to the community, people in these communities and community leaders, they actually like the sounds of having a predominantly rural riding. And so that's the kind of options that we're going to be discussing as Parliament discusses the boundary changes.
Hillier says he also wants to make sure that the Commission doesn't consider splitting up the city of Lethbridge. He says MPs have to file an objection in order to participate in the upcoming parliamentary discussion on boundary changes. The Boundary Planning Commission is planning to finalize the new boundaries by September. It was another National Day of Action for the Idle No More movement, as we mentioned, but it was a quiet day in southern Alberta. Only a handful of demonstrators showed up on the Piikani First Nation, where organizers were planning another rally. RCMP were prepared to escort the protesters, but the event never happened. It fell through after one of the main organizers was unable to attend because of a birth of a grandchild. And a group calling themselves the First Nations Council says while they support the Idle No More movement, they want to put the need for change into action. Now, the group held a rally over the weekend at Galt Gardens. They say while Idle No More has been effective in bringing issues to the forefront, they want to bring more attention to how badly the need for change is. They're collecting census data that will be used for the next annual band meeting. Organizers say they want to bring the community together to encourage discussion and create change.
The blockades and the flash mobs and things of that nature. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not saying that they haven't woken people up. But now that people are awake, we need to start involving people and getting ourselves heard, making ourselves heard.
Information that's collected will prioritize major issues that need to be addressed, such as job opportunities and funding for schools. Blood Tribe Chief and Council have set a by-election date to hold a runoff for the 12th spot on Band Council. The March 5th by-election will include two candidates, Kyla Crow and Robin Littlebear. An election appeals committee ruled the runoff by-election was necessary because it was impossible to do a fair and accurate recount. The committee cited a number of problems with electronic equipment and improperly stored ballots. Littlebear and Crow tied for the final spot on council during an election last November, but Crow appealed after a coin toss was used to break the tie. We've got to bring out the parkas, we've got to bring out the boots because, oh right, winter's coming back again.
Yeah, we kind of get complacent when we have so many mild days in a row and everything's melting, and then we get hit with this. We've got an Arctic outflow coming out of the north-northwest. That's going to be arriving tonight. We've got some precipitation on the way. The snow isn't the big factor. It's the cold temperatures and the wind chills that will be very chilly throughout the day tomorrow. I'll have details in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Dory. RCMP are continuing to investigate a fatal crash near Redcliffe. An oil field truck and a pickup collided just before 7 Sunday at the intersection of Highway 1 and Range Road 65. A 25-year-old oil worker from Medicine Hat died in the crash. The driver of the other vehicle suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Both men were driving alone. Police say that alcohol and speed are not factors in the crash. A 41-year-old woman is facing charges in connection with an assault in downtown Lethbridge yesterday afternoon. Police say that a woman approached a vehicle, opened the passenger door, and then tried to pull the female passenger out. They got into a struggle and the truck was damaged. Shauna Pinay was later located by police and arrested. She'll appear in court January the 30th. An Edmonton woman is celebrating a bittersweet victory after a precedent-setting human rights decision last month. Joan Cowling successfully claimed that she was the victim of age discrimination. Her employer, the Alberta government. Cowling worked on what's now the Department of Human Services for 8 years before being told that her job was changing. Her manager said the position would be redefined with less responsibility and for someone less qualified. Cowling applied for it anyway and was turned down. She believed it was because of her age, and the Human Rights Commission agreed with her, saying her superiors clearly tried to get rid of her even though she was not only qualified for more than the job requirements, but perhaps more qualified than her managers. She was 59 at the time that she started working there. Cowling spent 4 years fighting the government on this and says losing her job was devastating.
Deterring to see that there's not a lot.
Self-fulfillment that a job brings. So those are things that really, when one doesn't want that to be removed yet, it's very challenging. Self-esteem is really impacted by that.
We'll have more on this story coming up on our news at 6. Thousands of Canadians were in for an unpleasant surprise today when they tried to use their Visa card. The credit card giant is working to resolve a nationwide outage. Visa says the problem stems from a third-party provider and is not with the Visa network. Royal Bank of Canada and TD Canada Trust are among the big banks who say their customers are being affected by the outage. Hundreds of credit card users took to social media today to vent their frustrations over cards being declined. People whose personal information was lost on a hard drive are getting a break on their credit. Earlier this month, Federal Human Resources announced the hard drive was missing since November the 5th. It contains the personal information of nearly 600,000 Canadian student loans programs borrowers. Those affected will get credit and identity protection services for up to 6 years. At this point, there's no indication that any of the information has been accessed for fraudulent purposes. Canadian cattle producers are getting greater access to dinner tables in Japan. The federal government says it's reached an agreement with Japan to expand market access to Canadian beef from animals under 30 months of age. The current requirement only permits beef exports from animals under 21 months. The new regulations take effect February 1st. A couple of big announcements for Medicine Hat residents. Similar to Lethbridge, the Gas City is creating a collision reporting center to help free up police resources. The center will open March the 7th at the Medicine Hat Police Station. And that city's Family Leisure Center is also getting a $10 million boost from the federal government for upgrades. After recovering from major heart surgery, local musical legend Murray Nelson was cash-strapped and needed a hand, and that's when the Lethbridge music community stepped in. As Brendan Miller reports, the community came together for one of their own.
For over 40 years, Murray Nelson has inspired the musical scene here in Lethbridge. Nelson has been teaching guitar since the 70s, and since that time has had the opportunity to work with rising musicians such as Corb Lund.
He was his first guitar teacher when Corb was a 16-year-old. He came to Murray for lessons.
Nelson was also a founding member of the Lethbridge Buskers Association, helping to clarify the city's policy on buskers and provide them a voice. But last November, the prominent musician suffered a heart attack and had to undergo a double bypass surgery. Now back on his feet and recovering, the musical community that benefited so much from his influence now has their chance to give back.
It's unbelievable that these people showed up, and I just have to say thank you to everybody involved in doing this, because, well, it's overwhelming.
Donations from the benefit concert will help Nelson recover from his open heart surgery.
As a musician, he's self-employed and doesn't have the kind of benefits that a lot of people would have if they worked in an outfit that has a union, for example.
The evening also drummed up interest in a charitable foundation to help musicians who have fallen on hard times.
Musicians who do fall on hard times by virtue of illness, trauma, tragedy would have some resource to be able to access to get them through a short period of time, a few months, so they can take some time out while they heal physically, emotionally, psychologically.
But for Nelson, tonight is all about seeing old friends and enjoying the music.
For me, it's just a way of life. It's nothing else but a way of life.
Brendan Miller, CTV News, Lethbridge.
Fire departments in the East Kootenay have a new tool that can save lives. A generous donation has equipped fire halls in the region with oxygen kits specifically designed for the furry members of the family. Kimberly Davidson reports.
When firefighters arrive at the scene of a burning building, their first priority is to make sure all the people inside get out. And when that's done, their next concern is the animals.
You know, we not only just save people out of burning buildings, we save pets.
And now fire departments in the East Kootenay have a new tool to help them do just that. Oxygen systems designed specifically for animals.
There's 3 different size masks, and it'll fit a variety from small cats and dogs to larger dogs. There's a very nice seal around the mask that is form-fitting to any kind of snout, any shape or size.
18 pet oxygen kits are now on fire trucks across the region, thanks to a donation from the owners of a local pet care center.
Our whole life has been dedicated to the welfare of animals, and we just felt this was a no-brainer to do this. So.
Firefighters here say that pets are involved in a lot of the house fires they attend, and pets are often the ones who are most in need of oxygen.
The people will get out right away, but the pets will go and hide, either in a bedroom or under a bed, and they're the last ones usually to come out.
In the past, firefighters have used masks designed for humans to deliver oxygen to pets, but these new kits will be much more effective.
The biggest thing too is that you have to remember is that they are like family members, and it's just as important that they have a chance to be saved. So if we can get them out and give them the best possible chance, then it's great for the family who's already lost enough.
Kimberly Davidson, CTV News, Cranbrook.
The oxygen masks aren't just for cats and dogs. The smallest mask will even fit on little pets like hamsters and even birds. Coming up after the break, Dory's going to tell us just how much snow and how much cold weather we can expect. First, though, the markets.